Hi, I'm Norman Seabrook, former president of the New York City Correctional Officers Benevolent Association for over 20 years. You know, in 20 years, you see a lot of things in the agency. 10 years as an officer, too, so it's like 30 years in that you get the opportunity to experience certain things. And one of the things that I think is very, very important is that people don't realize the type of individuals that you deal with on a daily basis. I want to tell you one story about an inmate. We were in ARDC. It was the jail for adolescents. You know, it converted back and forth between adults and adolescents. And we had this one kid there, and a lot of them, of course, were, some of them needed mental health evaluations, some of them needed treatment. And one day we're all sitting in the mess hall because the mess hall is where, you know, the staff had lunch or dinner working their tour. So we're all in the mess hall, about 15 of us on the day tour is having lunch. And when the alarm rings, you're responsible to get up, run to a designated area, put on some protective equipment, and go to the area that's affected. Lord and behold, the alarm rings and it's on the odd side of the building. Buildings 1, 3, 5. Other side of the building, 2, 4, 6. And of course it extended 8, 10, it got bigger and bigger. But this particular opportunity that the bell rang, and it was a missed opportunity for a lot of people because they were just sitting down to eat. And you know, you were eating and you got your pizza or whatever you brought from home if you wanted, and you got your meal sitting there and you got to leave this meal now. The alarm rings. Go suit up, run down to the housing area, the affected area, and what's going on? What's going on? They said, inmate in, I don't know, let's say 5 cell. So you get down in front of 5 cell and you stand there. This inmate had took his feces, smeared it all over his body, from the top of his head, and he was naked all over his body. I mean, he must have piled up this crap for a week before he doused himself with it, covered his face, his arms, his legs, and the supervisor now says, go in there and get him out. Are you serious? Go in there and get him out. He is telling you to come on and get me. And I mean, you know, it is disgusting. There is feces everywhere, on the walls, on his face, on the floor, on the bed. It's everywhere. And this is where it starts, is when inmates start to do that type of stuff. And I mean, you know, you're told to go in there and get them. Of course, there's a verbal confrontation to officers saying, I'm not going in there. I'm not going in there. And then you got to hose them down first. Then you got to go in there and get them. Then you got to cuff them. It got to the point that one of the facilities on Rikers Island, JATC, 1B was the housing area. And it was bars and cells and things like that. It was no doors, it was bars. So you could actually put your hand through the bar, vice versa, whatever. The officers had to wear raincoats, literally wear raincoats and rain hats and rain boots, because the inmates would pile up their feces. And as the officer, male or female, supervisor or not, come to make a tour of the area, what they would do is they would literally throw buckets of crap on the officers. One in their mouth, their hair, their clothing. Now I want you to imagine a correction officer getting feces thrown in their face, getting it thrown in their hair, and especially the female correction officers getting doused with that and having to have that uniform on. If they didn't bring another uniform with them, they stuck with that for 8 hours. And I mean, this crap was everywhere, every single day. Every day you got doused, without a doubt. I didn't care who you were. You got doused with urine and feces. And it went on and on and on and on. And these things continue to occur on Rikers Island. Inmates would douse other inmates with the stuff. It became such a huge problem that there was a piece of legislation put in to protect correction officers that I put in. It was called the Feces Bill. It was that bad. I don't mean no disrespect to anybody, but that shit was everywhere, and it's just sad because that's what people don't understand about some of the things that happen in correction, in jails, in prisons. And these are things that go on every single day. And people try to downplay it. Oh, that doesn't happen. No, it happens. It happens when managers, assistant commissioners, or chiefs walk through. They get doused too. Oh, yeah, they've gotten doused, but now they want to, oh, my God, retaliate. Now, but all of a sudden now, you're affected by it. But these people that's been getting shit thrown on them day in and day out didn't bother you. Oh, but let me tell you stories. You have to be there to understand it. And I mean, I'm not talking about one incident. I'm talking about reoccurring over and over and over and over. And the inmate that did it to you, okay, yeah, they'll get an infraction and they'll go to punitive segregation, but they're already in punitive segregation. So what are you going to do to them? You can't go down there and beat them up. That you think we do. We don't do that. But at the end of the day, trust me when I tell you, trust me, it's not what everybody thinks it is. You go down there and it's rough. There are things that happen in facilities that you would absolutely shake your head at. I remember an incident that occurred in OBCC. The inmates took and barricaded a housing area. Now, I want you to imagine that these inmates got their heads wrapped with towels, sheets, pillowcases. They are wearing extra clothing. It's rough. And that's the kicker to the whole thing is when you start to see them stockpile their commissary, stockpile all of their stuff that they need because they're getting ready to go off. And they went off. They barricaded the door. They put soap and water all over the floor. They're screaming, yelling, setting fires. It's on and popping. Oh, yes, it is. And the officers are trying to breach the door to get in, to do what it is to bring it under control. It doesn't work like that. And I, being a former member of the emergency unit, we had to do that. We had to breach the door, get in, and put this thing down. And when you get through those doors, let me tell you something, the lights are off. There's gas that you have to shoot. You shoot the gas, tear gas and stuff like that. And it's bad. Everybody's coughing and choking. The floors are slippery and wet. The inmates are fighting with you. They're fighting there to survive. You're fighting to survive. They're ripping the gas mask off your face. There's blood with some of the other inmates over there that are all messed up from them stabbing each other. There's no lights except for the flashlights or the emergency lights that come on because they've knocked out all the lights. There are things happening right now that will blow your mind. And it's scary. It really is scary for everybody because what you're doing is you're dealing with something that is the unknown. You've never dealt with that before. So you're dealing with this, and while dealing with this, you're thinking about your life, your safety. You don't know who's next to you. You're supposed to go in there with your partner. They're snatching the batons away from some of the officers because, trust me, there's no guns involved here. There's no 9mm that you get to pull out that has 15 rounds in it and one in the pipe. And you stand back and you go, if you do this, I'm going to do that. Nope. You going in there, you got a 36-inch wooden baton and you got your knuckle game. And if you don't have your knuckle game or your things together, you're going to catch a bad decision. Because those guys in there, they are not in there playing with you. They're in there being very, very serious. And in being serious, okay, they don't care because it's kind of difficult to identify them. You don't know who's who. Everybody's masked up. Everybody's got 5 and 6 different layers of clothing on them. Everybody's got their head covered, their mouth covered, their neck covered, their hands covered, so that when they stab you, the blood doesn't drip on their hands where they could do a test later on to determine whether or not they were involved in it. This is serious business that you're going into. And these guys and girls, they don't care. They don't care. So it's a tough job. Oh, yeah, we got some tough correction officers that do the hardest job in New York, the toughest precincts in New York, the city jails. But then you have some correction officers that go over and beyond. Correction officers that go over and beyond. Yeah, there's some of them that do that. They cause problems for other officers. They cause problems by instigating, by putting a battery in someone's back. And then when it pops off, they want to step off. It don't work like that. You don't go down there and stomp a guy just because you and him have some type of verbal disagreement. He chumped you, he dissed you. So now you go down there and you want to set it off. You want to make believe that you got assaulted so that you can hit your PBA, personal body alarm, and have a response team come down. And when the team gets there of 2 or 3 officers and a supervisor, you want to swing on him and say that he swung on you. Now you got 4 other people writing a report because of you. You couldn't do this by yourself. You needed to have somebody else do this for you. So now you got 4 other people that's putting their livelihood on the line for you. For you. Just because you want to be a tough guy. Well, look, it don't work like that. That has to stop because that's the biggest problem in some of the facilities throughout the country is that somebody wants to be the tough guy. And when you be the tough guy, you got to expect there's going to be repercussions. So you put your sister or your brother officer in jeopardy because you want to be a tough guy. Don't work like that. So yeah, you've seen it. And I've seen some inmates tear someone's behind up. I'm going to leave it like that. I'm not even going to say the words that really I want to say. And I don't know whether they deserved it or they didn't, but I know they messed with the wrong inmate. All you got to do is just give them what they're supposed to have. If he wants 2 pieces of chicken, give it to him. You ain't paying for it. Give him a blanket, you're not paying for it. Send him to the barbershop, you're not cutting his hair. Then, to do what you're supposed to do for him. Once you do what you're supposed to do for him, you're not going to have no problems with him. But it's when you tell him no. For 8 hours, you told this guy no. And then you come back to work the next day, and another 8 hours, you tell this guy no. Sooner or later, this guy going to crack. Give them what they're supposed to have. That's all they're asking for. Just, look, it's not our job. Well, our job is care, custody, and control. Do that, give them what they're supposed to have. Or he just might turn on you. You know if you beat a dog too many times, they're going to bite you sooner or later. So somebody's going to get bit if they keep treating people disrespectfully. I've seen inmates on inmate fights where an inmate took a razor out of their mouth, 6 of them. 6 of them. They used to call them 6-packs. 3 on the top, 3 on the bottom of single-edge razor blades. And talk just like you and I are talking right here. You wouldn't even know that they had a razor blade in their mouth. And some inmates still do that to this day. And when you take that razor, that straight box cutter out of your mouth and you spit it and you hit somebody with it, it's like watching a piece of meat. And the best example that I can give is you take a piece of ham, big piece of ham or big piece of beef, and you take the sharpest blade that you have and you just rip it open. And you keep ripping it and ripping it and ripping it and ripping it. And that's what they do to each other. That's what they do to each other. 200 stitches, 300 stitches. I've seen officers lose their fingers by inmates biting off their fingers, putting it in their mouth and spitting it at them. And these inmates, they're fighting against each other. Bloods against the Crips, the Latin Kings, the Nietas, all of these different gangs. And they're controlling little areas, little pockets. And then they go to war with each other. And I'm talking about straight, cold war. Leaving nothing on the table. I'm talking about ripping it open. I'm talking about, I saw with my own eyes, so many sliced parts of this guy's back that was open. I didn't even understand that how was they was gonna close them up. It was that bad. Their face opened up from cheek to cheek, ripped open with a razor blade, box cutter. Oh, it's happening. And it happens every single day. Or they take a banger, what's called a banger, shank, shiv, whatever you want to call it. And I'm talking about huge pieces of metal, sharpened at the end. And I'm talking about stabbing repeatedly, bang, 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 bang. And that's why they got the name Banger from, because he would bang you with it. And blood is gushing everywhere. And the officer standing there, stop, stop, stop. He can't or she can't get in the middle of that. The other inmate doesn't care who's watching. They don't care who's recording them. At the end of the day, their duty is to do what it is to handle their business. And they do. I'm not going to say they don't, but they need to stop. They need to stop because all it is another charge. And another one, and another one, and another one. And you keep doing that, you're never going home. At the end of the day, that needs to stop. But some of y'all watching this know. Some of y'all have witnessed this. Some of y'all have been victims of this, of the way that these individuals get down and open each other up with box cutters, bangers. It's tough. And don't let them get to the point of taking, in the middle of the night, filling up their socks with what they call state soap. It's the soap that they give to you when you're indigent or they put in the housing area. And they fill up their sock with it. And 3 or 4 of them on the midnight tour. You're sleeping in a dormitory type setting. And 2 or 3 of them get up in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning. The officer goes to the other side to do another inspection or a security check. And they go to work on you. I'm talking about they take it and they just repeatedly beat you and beat you and beat you and beat you with this soap in this sock until you are just unconscious. It happens. It continues to happen every day. There needs to be, and I'm not saying, it has to be, but there needs to be some law and order. There has to be some law and order. At the end of the day, you can't expect to go to Rikers or any place else and be assaulted and become a victim. I understand, but that's not the way to do it. I get it. That's not the way to do it. So yeah, I've seen some real stuff in my time. People bringing in contraband. Officers bringing in contraband for inmates. What are you doing? Today it's a sandwich. Next week it's a pack of cigarettes. The next week it's a couple of joints. The next week is all kind of things coming in. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it don't exist. Of course it exists. And hopefully they'll be caught and rooted out. Hopefully they'll be caught. And if you know that your partner's doing it, next week is going to be a 9mm. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. So you need to put a stop to that right now. There's no space for you at the inn. You got to go. You can't live here because you're jeopardizing the safety and security of the officers, the inmates, the civilians. People don't come there to get shot. I've seen it. I've seen them when they got smuggled the gun in GRVC, and I've seen it when they had a gun in JATC. All right? That could have killed someone. Thank God that it didn't. God is good. He'll protect you, but you got to protect yourself. So he brings the gun into the jail, smuggles the gun into the housing area. The gun goes to the officer gives the gun to the inmate fires the gun, hits the other officer in the foot by mistake or whatever they were trying to do to get some type of lawsuit or whatever the case may be. Everybody's going to the hospital. All this search is being done. The gun is found. A couple days later, guess what happens? They come and arrest the officer that smuggled it into the jail at roll call, in his uniform. The warden, I never forget, Warden Patterson, she snatched the shield off of his chest and they marched him out. I ain't mad at him. I am mad at her for what she did. I'd have snatched it off his chest too. Could have been killed. Could have been anybody.